Hello, and thank you for joining me for another ITY interview. I'm sorry if you can hear some fan noise. That's part of the issues of having a modern computer, doing video conferencing and the fan spin up. But if you can, you can. If you can't, that's okay. I'm Alex Ahadovroit, and with me today is James Robinson. He is the country manager for Australia and New Zealand of HMD Global, the home of Nokia phones. And we've interviewed James before. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me, and I'm glad the ITY fans are welcoming me back.
Well, that's. I mean, we've got the fans on my computer, which are spinning loudly at the moment, and we've got the fans back at
Not to be
ITY.
confused. Yeah.
Well, these fans are very noisy, but anyway, hopefully people aren't hearing it. So look. HMD Global has been busy with new Nokia phones. You've just released the new Nokia 8.3 5G and some other, more affordable Nokias as well to look at all those different price points. I was watching the live event a couple of weeks ago now, and you had the tie-in with the No Time to Die James Bond movie, which had the new Bond actress. I'm forgetting her name now, but she looked very cool, and everything looked cool except for the fact that, of course, we now have to wait until sometime in 2021 for the movie. But look, I'm going to be having a session with one of your top guys, Mitchell Senior, who will tell me about the Nokia 8.3. But what, in short, can you tell us about this new Nokia, which comes just in time for the 5G, revolution that is now upon us?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a really exciting event. It was Lashana Lynch is the actress that we're working with on the Nokia phones, which is really exciting for us. And as you say, very cool movie to be associated with the upcoming No Time to Die movie. It's a little bit disappointing that it's been pushed out to next year to see our new 5G starring in the film. But nevertheless, I think there's a great opportunity for us to get in on the 5G story that it is, and it's the phone that I've been using and absolutely loving, and I'm always fortunate to have access a couple of months early, and I've got to say that it's without doubt the best phone that I've used so far, and I think that without ruining what you're going to get into with Mitch. There's a couple of key things that I really like about this device. So I think the camera is a standout feature, and everybody that's been using it has commented to me about how awesome the camera features are, especially when you start to get into the cinematic video capturing mode. The stabilization in the video, the action cam stabilization has been really good. I used it the other night to take a photo of Mars. Near the moon, and the night shot mode was really good as well. So that I've been quite impressed with. But I think when we look at what 5G is and the fact that 5G is evolving so rapidly and the networks are rolling it out over the next couple of years, is when we're looking at the phones that we're purchasing, is not just buying for what the networks have available today, but it's also about buying what's available tomorrow. And I think that's one of the key pillars to where the 8.3 5G stands out. It's a true future-proof 5G phone. We have the most number of radio networks supported in this. So, fingers crossed in the next 2 to 3 years, we get to go traveling again. You can go and use this phone in many other countries and know that you're going to have a 5G connection. And I think that's one of the true standouts of this device, having access to 13 different new radio bands in the device.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that.
I think other than that,
I was just going to say, I know that one of the Pixel 4a 5G phones, it doesn't have I think the sub-millimeter wave bands, whereas the Pixel 5 does have more of the bands. So to have a phone that is looking after all those bands, it also means that in theory, whatever bands that the carriers in Australia or in other countries are still to roll out, the phone will already be compatible with those, which is future-proof.
And absolutely, yeah, and that's one of the things that we look at. As the operators in Australia and New Zealand roll out their networks, there will be new frequencies that become available, and we're fairly confident that as they become available, our phone will be able to work on them. In terms of availability, it's on pre-order now with JB Hi-Fi and Amazon. It's $899, so we think that it's hit the real sweet spot, and it really reaffirms our commitment to making technology available to a broad section of the community. And it'll be on sale on the 15th of October.
Okay, which is only about a week away, so no doubt excitement for
And
that.
then we come on.
Yeah, and I look forward to trying it out and comparing it with the other technologies out there. Now, one of the other things you did late last month, I think on the last day of September, was to release your new HMD Global ANZ Smartphone and Data Security Report. Now, that's a 14-page PDF with a stack of great information. I was reading through it. I'll have the link to that in the description of this video and also in the article that this video is embedded in. Let's just go through some of the things in the report. How did the pandemic bring us closer to our phones and to each other?
Yeah, well, 2020 is throwing a whole lot at us, and it seems to keep throwing things at us. We started the year with the bushfires displacing a number of families from their homes, and then we had the global pandemic, which has socially isolated a lot of people, not just from their family, but their friends and even their work colleagues. And so as a result, we've seen people really start to use their phones a lot more. One of the really interesting stats for me is that 69% of mobile phone users across Australia and New Zealand have changed the way that they've used their phones. So not just increased it, we saw that over a third have increased it just to stay in touch with family and friends, but 69% have changed the way that they use their phone. And I think about my mum here, where she'd never used Messenger before, and now she's having group video chats with me and my brothers and our kids. So she's dramatically changed the way that she's using her phone to stay connected. I think the other one that we've really seen a lot of, a big increase in online shopping and mobile payments has really increased throughout the pandemic. And, it's so convenient now that we're sitting on our couch or lying in bed and we're scrolling through our favourite products, and it's really easy to purchase now. So that's one of the other really big changes that we've seen in here as well.
Yeah, well, with people doing so much more of their lives on their mobile phones, people are obviously worried about the smartphone security. So what did your report find out about that?
Yeah, and it was good to see that people are actually demonstrating concern about their mobile device security. Over half of Aussies and Kiwis are concerned about their phones' security. A third of Aussies and Kiwis were keen to learn more about how to use their phones safely, which is always promising. And a third of mobile phone owners had, some of these things are interesting, some of them were concerning. A third of them, or over a third of them, had no idea where their mobile phone's data is actually being stored. They don't know which country it's being stored. They don't know who has access to their phone's data.
So where is the data that is on your Nokia phone being stored?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we've been quite transparent about for quite some time. We came out last year and we've announced that, transparency is obviously a key pillar to trust, and that we partnered with CGI and Google Cloud to store customers' phone activation and usage data on the Google Cloud region in Hamina in Finland. We're a Finnish company, so it makes sense for us to store this data in Finland, and that then means it's under the protection of the EU's GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. And so that's a commitment that we've had so that customers know what's happening with their data. They know what we're capturing. And this is really to improve the performance of the next devices that are coming out. So we're happy to be transparent about that. And we obviously encourage people to start asking that question on where their data is being stored.
Yeah, and just as an aside, it's good to see that Google themselves and Apple, and I'm assuming Nokia also, there's a number of features and functions where a lot of the processing is actually done on device, not even sent to the cloud anymore. So we're starting to see phones becoming more than powerful enough to do that on-device processing, which is another good thing to protect your data privacy and security.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen the power of devices really increase over the last couple of years with the amount of RAM that they've got included in them.
Yeah. So one of the big issues that is on the Android side of the fence is the operating system updates. Traditionally, people are slow to update their phones, and even slow to update their just the security updates. I've got a relative that had 6 or 7 months worth of updates on their Samsung that they had simply never updated, and unfortunately on that particular phone you had to update month by month by month. And so I just said, look, just keep hitting that update, watch it, wait for it to download, restart the phone and do it again. And in the end they did it, and now they're trained when the thing says update your phone. I say, look, read it and make sure that it's not some make sure you understand what it says. If you're not sure, ring me. But please update. So Nokia has always been very good with getting timely updates to the phones. But what's the story in 2020?
Yeah, and it's a really common story that you just talk about. People go to hit snooze rather than update, which, when you think about what's actually happening there, those updates are putting in bug fixes, they're putting in security patches to your device, so they reduce the vulnerabilities that you may have in the device, and sometimes they introduce new features, so you get a new benefit in your device by updating. And in 2020, we've seen that a third of Aussies and Kiwis are still unsure about what the importance of an operating system update is. And so I think there's still a lot of education to go on in that space. We've seen a lot of improvement, and where we've made such a focus on making these updates available, that the security patches are being made available monthly, that's creating a habit. And it's like you just spoke about. If you create that habit and you get the habit of doing it, then we're finding that more and more of our devices are up to date. And a counterpoint research that we went through last year has demonstrated that Nokia is essentially the gold standard delivering these monthly security patches to devices. And I think that whilst we think about it from a security point of view, it's also about getting access to the latest and greatest that Google's building into the operating systems as well.
So on average, what's the amount of time that it takes Nokia, and I guess it depends on the phone and how old it is, but from the time that Nokia introduces Android 11, Google introduces Android 11, and then a Nokia device can upgrade to that, on average?
Yeah, on average, we're seeing it between 6 and 8 days between when Google make the security update available and when we're able to get it out to our devices. Sometimes it's less than that, and sometimes it's a little bit more than that, just depending on the product and the workload that we have on at the time. But generally, it's less than a week or around a week between it being available to us and then it being available to the end consumer.
Yeah, and because when you started to say 6 to 8, I'm thinking in the past that would have been months. So when you talk about days, I mean that's light speed in the world of Android compared to some other people that never release updates for their phones, certainly older ones, and do take months even today.
Yeah, and the importance of this for me is really highlighted when we see that the mobile payments are going up, and when we used to have our credit card in our wallet or our purse, it's now in our phone. And whilst that's immensely convenient now, we can shop anywhere we want at any time of the day, it also means that we need to be more conscious of making sure our phone's up to date, making sure that we have the latest security patch in there, because if you've let the vulnerability go for 7 months just because you kept hitting snooze, then you have really sensitive financial data that is potentially exposed.
Now, 2020, it's not the year that 5G started. I think we really saw that start off last year, but this is the year that it's really going to start taking off. And of course, the next several years, it will just be a huge renaissance of super fast 5G networks. Every phone eventually, even the cheapest ones, getting 5G. And I'm already seeing on YouTube people talking about 6G, even though it's still pretty fanciful at the moment. But how do you see 5G evolving over the next few years? What's the impact, and how soon are we going to see another Nokia with 5G as an example?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. 5G is the next evolution. And just like 4G and 3G before that, it takes a couple of years for it to reach, broad capacity across Australia. Australia's a pretty large country, but it's very much rapidly heading towards that. And it will be our primary point of accessing mobile networks for the future. So it's very much the next technology that is here now. And we, as we've seen, operators have even spoken about decommissioning their 3G network. So there's a real intent to move on to 5G, and this becomes much more relevant. As you say now, more devices are being made available at broader set of price points as the technology becomes broadly available. But we're seeing some really interesting things around this. There's a bit of confusion around there, and around about a quarter of Aussies and Kiwis are still confused around what the benefits of 5G are. And, I think what's widely spoken about is the benefit of speed, and that's one of the key things that people talk about is faster download speeds. But there are many other benefits for 5G coming on board, like the network capacity, meaning that we can have more devices connected to the network. We can get on and off the network more quickly. So these are really critical things that we need to start focusing on in the 5G conversation, so that, as the report pointed out, I think it was only 12% Aussies and Kiwis expect to benefit from getting 5G. And I think that as we start to get more devices on the network and the networks become more broadly available, then we're going to see many, many more benefits come out of 5G from there. And to say, we're just launching our 5G product, the Nokia 8.3 5G, and I'm sure you'll be one of the first to know the next 5G products that we have to come.
Sure. And of course, 5G isn't just about faster downloads, but about faster uploads as well. And whenever you're engaging in a video conference, for the other person to see you and to see you nicely and sharply and clearly, you need to have a fast upload capability. And, when you're out and about, you might not be able to, you might have great Wi-Fi at home, but there's no guarantee you're going to have that when you're walking down the street or, at somebody else's place. And for your own phone to have a native 5G capability and for 5G to be available in the area, it just means that, the requests you send, the video you send, the clarity at which the teachers can see your kids when they're, doing homeschooling, and the response times when you're playing games, all that depends on not just fast download speeds, but fast upload speeds as well. So it's good news for us all, and inevitably we're all going to have a 5G phone. So...
Yeah, that's right. And if you look back at your old social media posts and from a phone, the quality of the photos is quite terrible. We thought it was good at the time, but now that we look back at that, the pixelation's terrible. And when we think about how we're starting to evolve the way that we engage on social media with posting streaming video and reels and that sort of video content that we're capturing on our phones, being able to upload that in real time, having a much higher quality, that when we look back at it in 5 or 6 years' time, is going to become really important.
Yeah, I've seen some old digital photos taken, in the late 90s, early 2000s. And of course, the screens we have today are so much higher resolution. And these are small and pixelated. And like you said, at the time, we thought it was amazing. But you look back at it now, and it's the same way that when we were growing up, we would see black and white TV and movies, TV shows and movies. And, that's the way that young people think about low-res stuff today. That's like, oh, that's old, it was the best at the time, but things have moved on. Now,
exactly.
At the end of the report and also your press release, that you've got some top 5 phone safety tips. And look, I'll reprint those in the article that this video will go with. But in a nutshell, what are some of those tips?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that we can do today. It doesn't matter what phone you have, but there are some really simple things that we can do. And one of those is be security up to date. As we just spoke about, go and check your phone. Be proactive to look for the updates. When the updates come in, actually accept them and update your device. Really simple thing to do, which ensures that you're protected against those vulnerabilities that are out there. The second thing that we recommend is protecting your device from harmful content. So really think about how we're using our device. Think before we go and accept a connectivity request via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, for instance. Think about the websites that we're browsing, the content that we're downloading. Check the source that that's coming from before we go and download that to our device. Getting comfortable with two-factor authentication. It's many businesses are implementing it. It's a terrific way now to add an additional layer of protection when you're transacting online. And when we think about a mobile phone, there's a few different ways that we can do the two-factor authentication. There's the text message with the one-time code in it, but we now have fingerprint scanning or facial recognition that we can take advantage of when we're using two-factor authentication. We always recommend researching your phone manufacturer's data security policy. And this is something that, we're making sure that customers are aware of what's available. That transparency is key. But ask your manufacturer, whether it's your manufacturer now or when you're going through the research for your new device, ask the questions, what data is being stored? How is it being handled? Which country is it being stored in? And are there regulations in place that protect your data in that country or region? And the last thing that we really look at now is how we harness the technology that we have available to us to set those boundaries, and whether that's in our personal usage or our work usage. We think about social media. There are the obvious social media, and then the less social obvious media, like our sport tracking applications, or we have a couple of different applications to manage our kids' activities. So that's a social media platform that we don't necessarily think about. So by going in and looking at those settings, that you understand the information that's being shared, where it's being shared, who it's being shared with is really important. And then when we think about our work, one of the really interesting things that came out in the report, nearly 500,000 Aussies since the beginning of COVID have shared a work file with a personal contact. So knowing the settings that you have available to in those work applications is really important. How you use them to not only protect that information, but maybe take a little bit of control back in your life, set some boundaries so that you can improve your quality of life. And I know that the boundary I set is setting the notifications on my work applications so that I don't get them after 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah, no, that's all good advice. And, people really should take advantage of that. I mean, things like Google Authenticator is another two-factor authentication app. My bank uses, I used to have a little dongle or token that I would stick into my, on my keychain, but now I use the Symantec VIP app and to, log into my bank. And there's also the thing called a YubiKey. I have a YubiKey on my key ring, which I can plug into a USB-C on my laptop. And there's a new one that I'm reviewing that also has NFC in there. So there's many ways to switch on multi-factor authentication. And I definitely wholeheartedly agree that people should be using that because it's a lifesaver. So look, I know,
Absolutely.
yeah, I know that you can never talk about upcoming products with any kind of specificity. You don't want to give away anything. But are there any sort of broad brush sneak peeks on what we might expect from HMD Global and Nokia devices in 2021? 2021.
What I can tell you is that there'll be a Nokia 5G phone featuring in a Bond film next year.
I look forward to seeing that. Yeah, and obviously there'll be new models at new price points and more 5G, but yeah, that's to be expected. And so look, what is your final message for the viewers and the readers and for your current and future customers?
Yeah, and I think that what we've covered around 5G is really important, that is the evolution of the network. So it really needs to be factored into your next phone purchase. Do you consider 5G as part of that? When we look at the phones, camera is always one of the most interesting things that we think about, and we want to know more about the camera that's available. But there are other things that dictate the way that we use our phones, and that we need to start thinking about. Battery life is a really big one of those, and the operating system that's part of that, and how does that impact the battery life. And having a clean operating system like we do with Android One means that the drain on the battery is significantly reduced as part of that. And then also thinking about what are the future needs that you might have. Do you want to go travelling overseas and expect access to 5G? That needs to be a consideration for you. Are you getting your security updates? So ask how regularly the phone manufacturer makes those security updates available to you. Is it monthly or is it quarterly? And how reliably are they providing them monthly? How many operating system updates are you likely to get? So the 8.35B, which we've just spoken about, it launches on Android 10, but it's Android 11 ready. And it will also be getting access to the next Android version after Android 11. So they're the sorts of things that we need to start asking of our phone manufacturers when we're going through that buying process. And then that transparency around data storage. To me, that's one of the big ones here. And the lack of knowledge around this was really highlighted in the report. So do your research around that and find out where the data is being stored. If you don't have access to that information, then you probably need to reconsider that purchasing decision that you're going through.
Yeah, and even a lower end or mid-range phone from 2020 is going to be better than, a higher end phone from, 2017 or 2018, just because of the flow of technology. And, maybe there'll be some equivalency there where a higher end phone from a couple of years ago is going to be similar to a upper mid-range phone from today. But you will get that newer OS version. You'll get Android 11 when it comes out, which is obviously coming out very soon for the Nokia devices. And you should also, in terms of updating things, it's not just your OS that you should update, but you should make sure that you update your apps too. A lot of people, tell their phones don't update the apps because they're trying to save on data, or they postpone it or delay it. So yeah, updating is important. Sometimes you do want to let other people update first to see if there's any bugs, but normally, those are caught pretty quick. And it's I know people who just on older versions, and then they're having problems, and they ask why, and I have a look, and it's like, well, you're on a OS from 2 years ago, and there's an update for you, and they install the update, and the problem they had goes away. So it's important to update these days.
It's really important what you just mentioned about the applications, because all of these application makers have attended the Google I/O. They know what's coming in Android 11. There are new capabilities that they're going to unlock in their own applications. So it's not just what Google make available to you in Android 11, but it's what all of those application makers are going to make available, and what new features they're going to be able to unlock in their application for you. So there's multiple benefits to making sure you're getting onto the latest operating system.
Well, James Robertson, thank you very much. Good luck with the Nokia 8.3 5G launch. Can't wait to see the movie. It's a shame it's coming next year, but we should all be very familiar with the 8.3 5G by then. And, it's been fascinating to see the evolution of the technology in James Bond movies as well. 3 or 4 movies ago, Daniel Craig was using a Sony smartphone. And obviously, this time around, it's Nokia with the latest features. So pretty amazing stuff. So thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Very good. Thank you, Alex.
Bye-bye.